Welcome to Hilary Emmanuel Ministries, where faith meets power, purity and prosperity, and breakthroughs are born. At Diadem, we equip you with bold prayers, life-transforming teachings, and spiritual strategies to overcome every challenge life throws your way. Join us as we dive into God's Word, experience His presence like never before, and walk in His purpose for our lives. If you're in London, we invite you to fellowship with us in person at Diadem, 4 Pegamoid Road, N18 2NG. Don't forget to subscribe now and let's grow in faith together.
On Friday night, something very special happened in this place. It was a very unique visitation of the Lord. It was a very peculiar visitation. Himself translated us. The Lord Himself carried us on eagle's wings and brought us into the city, into the Gulf, into the land of wealth and riches. And brethren, we need to learn a few things about the new land. We need to understand a few things about the land of wealth, about the city, the Gulf of prosperity. There are a few things you need to know, because like any other society, any other community, there are laws. There are regulations, there are instructions, there are things you must do and things you are not allowed to do, so that we don't get into the land and begin to break the laws of the land. And that's why I want to talk to you today on what I call God prepared it for me. God prepared a table for me. You must know what that means immediately. When God prepares a table, which means the table is decked, the table is prepared, the table is well furnished, and everything you need to enjoy, they are there on the table. All you need to do is to sit down and enjoy. And such a table is not just an ordinary table. It's not a table prepared by man. It's a table prepared by the Almighty Himself. And I want you to understand what we are talking about here today. I want you to listen very carefully. Because after what I tell you now, we are going to pray. And everything the Lord has started in your life, He will surely perfect them. Look at Psalm 23. Psalm 23 verse 5. He says, Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Why will God choose to prepare the table when He knows the enemies are there watching? When He knows the enemies are there seeing everything. And that's where He chooses to prepare the table. Why would God do such a thing? Doesn't He know that the enemy could be a threat to the table? Doesn't know that the enemies could be a problem to you enjoying the food? There is a mystery to that. And I'm going to show you that mystery. He went further, he says, Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Verse 6. He said, as a result of that table, as a result of the anointing, He says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. Do you see that? That's the implication of God preparing a table for us, of God anointing our heads with His oil. He said, what will follow, the result, it will be goodness and mercy following us all the days of, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I want you to connect all these scriptures. Connect all of them. When God sets a table in your presence, and God anoints your head, and goodness and mercy are following you, you don't depart from the house of God. Are you understanding now? You don't just stand up and say, well, the table I've eaten and I'm satisfied. My head is still fresh with oil, so I need to go outside the house of God. Say, I will dwell, I will live there, I will remain there forever, all my life. When a table is prepared for you, you don't have anything to do anymore. All you need to do is to sit down and enjoy. You remember the kind of lifestyle that I showed you on Friday night of people that live in the land of wealth, the kind of lifestyle they live. Maybe we should read it again so that we refresh our minds. In Luke chapter 16, Luke 16, so that you understand what it means when He says that the Lord has prepared a table. and he has anointed the head with oil. Luke 16, look at verse 19. There was a certain rich man. Do you see that? Rich man, which was clothed in purple and fine linen. They don't just wear any kind of dresses. They dress to match. They dress expensively. They wear the best thing you can get in the market. They wear the best thing money can buy. So he said, this rich man, that's how he was dressing. And then something followed. He fared sumptuously every day. He eats good food. Why? Because a table was prepared before him. He has a table prepared before him. All he needs to do is to dine and eat sumptuously every day. Eat sumptuously every day. That's the lifestyle in the land of wealth. That's how they live. In the city, in the gulf of prosperity. That's how they live there. And I distinguished it for you that day, that there's a difference between crossing the poverty line and crossing the gulf of poverty. They are not the same. Now look at verse 20, the other side of the gulf. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid at his gate, full of sores. I told you the other side, which God brought us out from. The poverty city, the gulf of poverty. That side is full of sicknesses, diseases, sores, begging, insufficiency, lack. Verse 21. And desire to be fed with the crumbs. They're always eating crumbs, that side. Which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried. And in hell he lifted up his eyes, being in torment, and seeth Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. This is a mystery, isn't it? This is like a complication, an irony. Now maybe we'll break it down a little so that we have a clearer understanding. There's what you call material poverty. That's money, no money. That one is poverty. When there's no money, you are looking at me, I'm looking at you, nothing. That one is material poverty. And there's what you call spiritual poverty. The Bible says there are some that are rich on earth, but they are poor towards God. So spiritual poverty and material poverty, these two things determine a lot of things in the life of a man. The rich man had material prosperity but was spiritually poor. Lazarus had spiritual prosperity but was materially poor. Now, does material poverty take you to heaven automatically? Does material prosperity take you to hellfire automatically? Because was he not heavily rich on earth? Abraham is in heaven, his bosom himself. Yet on earth, he was heavily rich. Now, what was the secret? Abraham was materially rich and spiritually rich. So the balance was there. The rich man had material or physical or money riches, but no spiritual riches. That was what took him to hellfire. Lazarus was spiritually rich, but suffered on earth, no material prosperity. So what God is doing for us now is this. He is balancing it for us. You have both spiritual riches and you have also material riches like Abraham. I've heard people preach that, well, you need to be poor to go to heaven. Who told you that? Because poverty, if you are not careful, say, poverty takes people to hellfire. Poverty takes people to hellfire. So this balance is what God is doing in our lives now. This balance. So you can now understand what happened between the rich man and Lazarus. One was rich the other way here. The other one was poor here, rich the other side. That's why this swap. Now look at what happened. Verse 23. And in hell he lifted up his eye, being in torment, and seeth Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. So you now see that whichever divide, whether it be material poverty, there's suffering, there's dog licking people's mouth and all those kind of a thing in material poverty. Whether a spiritual poverty also, there's torment and fire also in that side. So poverty is poverty. There's no one that is good. Whether material poverty or spiritual poverty, no one is good. Verse 25. But Abraham said, Son, remember that thou in thy lifetime received thy good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted, and thou art tormented. Verse 26, that's where we are going. And beside all this, between us and you, there is a great gulf fixed. It says fixed. A bottomless pit. It says a great gulf fixed. On earth, physically, in physical prosperity, material prosperity, that gulf was there. In spiritual realm also, that gulf is there. So the gulf operates everywhere. That's what we dealt with on Friday night. That gulf. Now look at what Abraham said further. He says, so that they, because he knows that a lot of people want to cross. He says some people want to cross either physically from physical poverty to riches, or spiritually from spiritual poverty to spiritual riches. He said those who want to cross cannot, neither can they pass to us, that we will come from thence. And that's going to be the basis of our prayers here today. All the things you left behind in the whole gulf of poverty that want to cross to come and meet you again, the gulf will not allow them. All the enemies, all the demons, all the foundations that the Lord has separated you from, and you have crossed that gulf, and they want to come across. Abraham says it's impossible. There are things in your life that you are going to cry that this gulf will separate you permanently from them, that they can never return back to your life again. So you can see what is going on here. Now that you are in the city and the gulf of wealth, how are we going to live there? What are the things God expects from us? What are the things God wants us to do? Deuteronomy chapter 31, look at verse 20. The Lord was telling Moses, he was telling him about the children of Israel. Because the same thing he did for us on Friday night, he did it also for the children of Israel. He catapulted them, he carried them on eagle's wing and brought them into the land of wealth. Look at what he was telling Moses. He said, for when I shall have brought them into the land which I swear unto their fathers, he said it's a land that floweth with milk and honey, and they shall have eaten and filled themselves. I know, I told you there's a table prepared. I told you the Lord has prepared a table already. So there's going to be a lot of eating, serious eating. He said, when they have eaten and filled themselves and waxen fat. Because where there is eating, there is fatness. So when they have waxen fat, then will they turn unto other gods and serve them and provoke me and break my covenant. Do you see what I was saying now? Material prosperity must correspond with spiritual prosperity. That's what the Bible said. He said, brethren, I wish above all things that you will prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. So as you are prospering materially, physically, you must also be prospering spiritually too, so that you create that balance. Do you see what God is warning Moses? They've not entered the land yet at that time. God was already telling Moses, he said, this is going to be a trouble. When they get to the land, they are going to so much enjoy from the table I set before them, that they will even begin to become spiritually poor. And that spiritual poverty will destroy them. So you must make every effort, brethren, to balance this by yourself. Don't ever allow yourself to slide into spiritual poverty, because it will turn around and destroy the physical and material prosperity also. Deuteronomy chapter 8, look at verse 6. Therefore, thou shalt keep the commandment of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways. Because in that city, there's commandment, there's law, there are instructions, what you must do and what you must not do. He said you must keep the instruction, you must keep the laws, and to fear him. Verse 7. For the Lord thy God bringeth thee into a good land. It's a land where they have prepared a table for you. It's a land where you are going to eat and be very fat. It's a land where, look at how he described it. He said, a land of brooks of water, of fountains and depths that spring out of valleys and hills. There's another place in the Bible. It says that the land of Israel, the land of Israel is not like any other land on earth. He says it's a land that drinketh from the water, the rain that comes from heaven. He says it's a land where the face of the Almighty God is upon all around the year. He said there's no any other land like that on earth. So you can see, he says it's a good land. Verse 8, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of oil, olive and honey. Verse 9, a land wherein thou shalt eat bread without scarceness. There's no scarcity of food. You will eat without even thinking about it because it's abundant. Thou shalt not lack anything in it. Do you see that, brethren? Thou shalt not lack anything in the land. A land whose stones are iron. I told you this on Friday, that even if you decide and say, well, I don't have money, you can just stand up and begin to gather stones. Gather stones, if you have to throw them into the fire and begin to melt, they turn to iron. He said, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills thou mayest dig. If you can dig and you have energy, you go and start to dig any hill you see, you will get brass there. Verse 10, which means what the Lord is telling us here is this. I deposited wealth everywhere in the land. And they are so common to even get. They are so easy to get. That ordinary digging of land, you will get something that will give you money. Verse 10. When he now started the warning, after describing the land, after describing the table he has set before them, do you know that they did not bestow any labor to get all these things? They did not plant all this, they did not buy anything. The Lord didn't charge them money for all these things. All they needed to do is to enter and begin to enjoy. That's the table we are talking about. But then there is law. Look at the law. Start from verse 10. He said, when you have eaten and you are full, then thou shalt bless the Lord thy God for the good land, that's the first instruction. Remember to always appreciate God. Always appreciate God for giving you that privilege, for giving you such land. He said you must bless the Lord for giving you that land. Verse 11. He said, be careful, beware that thou forget not the Lord thy God. Because that's the number one thing that leads to immediate spiritual poverty. When you begin to forget the Lord your God. Look at this place now. Do you know that there are people that are supposed to be in service today? Why are they not in service? Possibly they are not even working. If they are working, that's okay. Possibly they are not working. But they just feel that, well, I'm too tired. I need to rest. I will join online. I will connect online. That's all. That's how it starts. Gradually you begin to forget the Lord your God. But tomorrow morning, you will not be tired anymore. Energy will come from everywhere because you know if you don't go, no pay. That's how it starts. Forgetting the Lord your God bit by bit. These are the things that lead to spiritual poverty. And the time spiritual poverty begins to set in, it begins to destroy the physical prosperity. So beware that you forget not the Lord in not keeping his commandment and his judgment and his statutes, which I commanded this day. What are those judgments? What are those? He said, keep my Sabbath holy. Verse 12. Lest when thou hast eaten and are full. You see the emphasis. The emphasis the Lord is repeating when you have eaten and you are full. Why? If the table is set, you have no effort apart from take the food and put in your mouth. Just continue to enjoy, that's all. And it's warning constantly when you have eaten and you are full and has built goodly houses and dwell therein. It's not saying maybe when you build goodly houses. So say you are surely going to build goodly houses. Because the wealth is there, the prosperity is there. You are in the land that is not common. A land where wealth has been deposited for you. He said you will build goodly houses and you are going to live in them. Verse 13. And when thy herds and thy flocks multiply, your businesses will multiply. So when your business begins to explode and thy silver and thy gold is multiplied, that's how wealth comes. It will start for you from where you used to be before. Then you suddenly get to a point whereby you see yourself with 5,000 pounds and you are not spending it because there's enough to spend. And then you see another extra 10,000 pounds and another 20,000 pounds and the extra 50,000 pounds and extra 100. And then God, you say it begins to multiply like that. So when it begins to your gold and your silver and all that thou hast is everything, the power of multiplication will just come upon your life. And they begin to multiply. Verse 14, he said, be very careful. He said, because there's one thing that might happen. Your heart could be lifted up. Now you are humble. Poverty humbles people. It's not by choice. It's compulsory. He said, now you are very, very humble. But when wealth comes, who is going to talk to you again? Then pride will come in. Ego will come in. If anybody talks, you say, please talk to me with respect. You put them in their position, isn't it? You say, I don't blame you. Is it not because I come so low and stay in your midst here? He said, be careful. The first one he told us to be careful is, don't forget the Lord your God. Now, the second be careful now is what? Your heart lifted up, pride. And thou forget the Lord thy God, which brought thee forth out of the gulf from the house of bondage. You remember the whole rope the Lord has to loose here that night. And all the chains. Verse 15. Who led thee through that great and terrible wilderness, wherein were fiery serpents and scorpions and droughts, where there was no water. Who brought thee forth water out of the rock of flint? Who fed thee in the wilderness with manna, which thy fathers knew not, that he might humble thee and that he might prove thee, to do thee good at thy later end. Verse 17, look at what the pride, the lifting up of the heart causes. Verse 17, then you begin to say in your heart, you might not tell anybody, you might not say it out. You begin to say it in your heart, my power and the might of my hand has gotten me this wealth. Really? Where was that your power since? Where was it? Before the Lord came and carried you on eagle's wing. Where was that power? Why didn't that power get you that wealth since then? So he said, be careful so that you don't get to that point where your heart begin to deceive you and say, well, it's just because of the business acumen I have. It's because of the business intelligence in my brain that I knew that if I do that, if I implement that strategy I learned, that it will turn to wealth. And as I did it, look at the graph. The graph went up like this and came down. Where was the graph all this while? He said, be careful. Verse 18. For thou shalt remember the Lord thy God. For it is, do you see the emphasis God is? How many verses now is repeating it? Don't remember God. Don't forget God. Repeatedly. Almost all the verses is putting it. Why? Because that is what will guarantee your spiritual prosperity. As long as you are in good terms with Jehovah God and your relationship with him is strong and tight, that is your spiritual prosperity. Then the physical prosperity will become done already. He said, you must remember the Lord your God, for it is he that giveth thee power to get wealth. Do you see that? Not by the power of your hand. That he may establish his covenant, which is sworn unto thy fathers, as it is this day. Verse 19. And it shall be, take note of this, it shall be, if thou do at all forget the Lord. You see, every verse he keep mentioning this forget and remember. He said, in case you ignore everything I've been saying and you decide to become proud and then you forget the Lord your God, he said, look at the consequence. And walk after other gods, because one, immediately you begin to forget God, you begin to replace him with another God. You begin to get other gods that you will serve. He said, in case you walk after other gods and serve them and worship them, I testify against you this day that ye shall surely perish. This was what happened to that rich man, and he perished in hellfire. Listen carefully, brethren. Did you remember what Abraham called him? Son. Why will Abraham call somebody in hellfire son? Because he was a son of God before. He was supposed to be on the side of God before. He was not supposed to go to hellfire. But all these things, he didn't do them. He forgot God. He chose other gods to serve and to obey. and he found himself in hellfire. Abraham says, son. Abraham didn't address him as a stranger. They knew him before. And he was even begging later and saying, I have 5 brothers. Can you do me a favor? Send somebody to rise up from death and go and warn my 5 brothers. Which means their family is supposed to know God, but they forgot God. They forgot God in their whole family. And Abraham told him, no, there are people preaching on earth. If your 5 brothers didn't listen to those ones, they will meet you where you are. This is a serious issue. You can see how many verses now I've been reading to you. The Lord has been emphasizing, remember, don't forget God. Don't forget God. Remember God. Don't forget God. And now he's telling them the consequence. He said it will lead to peril. Verse 20. He said, listen carefully to me in case you don't know. He said, you are not the first people to live in that land. You are not the first people. The land of wealth. The land of prosperity. He said there were people living in that land before. Look at verse 20. As the nations which the Lord destroyed before your face. He said there were people living there before. There were people that were eating and enjoying that good land before. Why did God destroy them? Because they forgot God. And they served other gods and idols. And God had to destroy them and brought you in. And brought you in. He said, if you do the same thing as those nations did, he said the same thing will happen. So shall ye perish, because ye will not be obedient unto the voice of the Lord your God. Brethren, this is now in our hand, and the choice is ours. We have to make up our mind. If you think that poverty is terrible, wealth is much more terrible, because there's nothing that destroys easily and quickly like wealth. Wealth comes with a demon of its own that controls everything. It comes with the spirit of pride, and God hates pride. God hates pride. When you have become so rich, so lifted up, everything wants your attention. Everything. The way you are now, you see how the credit card people are calling you all the time. Are you still alive? Are you still there? If your account changes, and they begin to see millions and millions and millions there, the bank managers will come to your house. They want to ask you, can you please give us an appointment to come and see you? We are coming with our investment directors to come and see if you give them approval to begin to invest that your money in diverse ways. It's before you are the one going to them. And you go there, you queue up and stay. Now, it's their director from their headquarters that will be coming to your house. Is that not a transformation? Is that not a change? Now you are the one going to queue up and pick one yam, you pick it, the center is rotten, you drop it, you carry the other one, you check all those things. They say, cut it for me, cut it for me. By the time you now settle down in the land and you begin to enjoy wealth, it's industries that will begin to flock around you. You say, how did they know about me? How would they not know? You see fashion designers, you begin to approach you with their designs. There are some that produce perfume. They say they want to stay with you just 3 days around you to be able to fabricate special perfume that fits your behavior and character. That's how they do. That's how they live with you 3 days and see how you behave, how you talk, how you do everything. And they create a special perfume that will match your character just for you only. And those things, brethren, can enter human beings' head. They can enter human beings' head. And the moment those things disappear, you will not see them again. No. They will not come back. Have you seen footballers before? All the small boys that play football. Do you see their pride? Do you see their ego? Do you see their behavior? Any of them that stumble and the money vanish, do you see how they rubbish them on the floor? That's why God is warning us all this warning. Say, be very careful. Don't forget your God. Because that is your, if you like, you say, that's your charm. That's your secret. It is that God that made you who you are. Hold on unto him, and you will enjoy it the rest of your life. That's what the psalmist said. The psalmist said, he has set a table before me. He has anointed my head with oil. He said, I will dwell in his house. I'm not going anywhere. All the days of my life. All the days of my life. His own son, Solomon, that took over. God also gave him that kind of wealth, greater than even David's own. And what did Solomon do? He forgot God. And what happened to him? All those wealth disappeared when he was still alive. He had to start to tax Israel heavily. To be able to person that has 1,000 women in his house. Do you know what that means? Breakfast alone. Do you know how many chicken or how many eggs they will fry for breakfast for 1,000 women? Not to talk of servants and slaves and other people, workers and children possibly. Lunch. You do know how many bags of rice they will pour inside pots to cook lunch. So all those things are money. But they all disappear. Why? Because he started to serve idols. He forgot God. He forgot God. And that's why God is begging us now, this early stage, say, please don't forget God. Don't forget God. Because that will lead immediately to spiritual poverty. And spiritual poverty is what took that rich man to hellfire. Let's close our eyes. Begin to appreciate the Lord, brethren. Begin to thank the Lord. Begin to glorify his name. And begin to worship him. And say, Father, I thank you for bringing me into the land of wealth and riches.
Thank you for watching. If this message blessed you, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to join our growing community of faith. You've just listened to the sermon, but there are powerful prayers that follow. Due to social media rules and guidelines, the prayers have been removed from this video. However, you can access the full prayers and more life-changing resources by visiting www.pastorhillary.org or downloading our app, Diadem Media. If you're in the London area, we'd love to have you fellowship with us in person at 4 Pegamoid Road, N18 2NG. If you have any questions about this message, want counseling from Pastor Hillary, or wish to share your testimonies following the prayers, please leave a comment below and someone from our team will get in touch. Until next time, may God bless you abundantly and guide you in all your ways. Stay victorious.